Today's gospel lesson is from Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising, and we have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and worship him." When they heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them with the star they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and worshipped him. Then opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Okay. Pop quiz for all you crossword fiends and classic students. What's the plural of radius? Radii, double I's. In both Latin and Greek, the I can be the plural of a word. And so magi is the plural of magus, M-A-G-U-S. And we translate that usually as wise men, and that's probably as good as any other translation in English. The Magi were shamans. It's another word. They were a combination of priests and seers, and I've got to get it straight in my mind. They were not astronomers, they were astrologers. They thought that you could predict the future in the stars. And in their studies, they determined that the Savior of the world was born somewhere to their west. And they saw that. And so there were magi, these wise men. It's been pointed out a lot in recent years that we don't know how many. Traditionally we say three, because there were three gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, but the text just says magi, plural, 2, 20, who knows? But traditionally we say three because of the three gifts. And for a long time, the church has interpreted those gifts symbolically, and we'll sing about it at the end of the service. And it's the same thing that I said to the children, that gold represents the king, because king have more gold than anyone else. The frankincense and myrrh are both made from the resins of trees. And frankincense is incense. And we heard from the Old Testament lesson that they'll bring gifts of frankincense and gold. Frankincense was highly valued. And if you dig into Leviticus and all that with all the rules of temple worship, frankincense was included in the worship in the Holy of Holies. It wasn't just incense in general. It had to consist, at least in part, of frankincense. And so we have long understood frankincense to symbolize the divinity of Christ, that Christ is God, in the flesh, now appearing. And myrrh, usually called spice. Mary recall that when Christ was hanging on the cross, they offered him wine mixed with myrrh. And as the women were preparing his body with minerals, they anointed his body with spices, and that would almost certainly be myrrh. That was most commonly used for that process. A reminder that Christ was born to die for our sins. So the gold and frankincense and myrrh have great symbolic meaning. Now, if you were here last week, or even if you weren't here last week, the Gospel of Luke was written primarily to Gentiles. But in the reading for last week, Luke goes out of his way to show that Jesus and his family followed the Jewish law, that they were practicing Jews, that they went to the temple for the circumcision and for the rites of purification after the birth, and to dedicate the oldest male, the oldest son, to God. Luke's writing to Gentiles and saying, Jesus is the fulfillment of God's promise to the world through the Jews. And now this week we have the Gospel of Matthew, which is a gospel written primarily to Jewish Christians. Matthew is the one who says the first people to worship Christ were Gentiles. And so Luke and Matthew are coming from opposite directions to the same point, to say that Jesus, the Christ, is the Savior of the whole world, Jew and Gentile. And there's no third category. It's either, if you're not Jewish, you're a Gentile. And Christ came as the Savior to the whole world. In a moment, we're going to remember the death of Christ, the sacrifice that He made, by symbolically partaking His body and His blood. And so it is a solemn ceremony, and yet it is joyful, because we are celebrating God's victory over sin and death through the coming of Jesus Christ. Praise be to God.